we knew we had to have something that was everyone could spell, that would appear easily in headlines, that everyone would be able to remember, that was reasonably short and reflected a message of what the content would be like. And so I think in hindsight, it was a really good choice. And it was Andrew Inwood, who was one of the original shareholders. I think he came up with the name. My mum wasn't that happy because, Crikey's a bit sort of blasphemous for Christ. But in hindsight, I think it was an inspired choice, because we did want people to literally open the email and say, "Crikey, can you believe what they're saying?" And I still love that original slogan, which was "Crikey, bringing down governments since September 1999." And that was sort of in February 2000 we said that. So we wanted to be brash and bold and alive, and we wanted to be challenging and talking truth to power. And I think the name was a really good choice. And it still had this great irony with Steve Irwin, also going off everywhere with Crikey at the same time. Taking it to the billionaires and the very rich and powerful. So I think that the Democrat story, where basically we broke a series of stories, and it led to the implosion and the end of the Democrats. I still think that was Crikey's biggest story because of its impact, because it literally did lead to, the end of the balance of power party that had been around for 25 years. And left the gap open for the Greens to become the new third force. So I think for impact that was big. I mean, I guess one of my sort of smaller favourite stories was that John Howard's son was slated to do an internship at the George W. Bush White House, and we actually stopped that happening by using language such as queue jumping. Because you have to be a US citizen to get an internship. So often it's the little stories that you break that get denied, but then you hear later that you actually stopped. And probably one other one was we did work out that some stories we did around Insurance Australia Group, or the NRMA, actually led to the NRMA saving $300 million. Because we went to their AGM, wrote a story, and that triggered them to actually sell out of reinsurance just before September 11. And then one of their execs later said, "Thank you, you saved us $300 million because we got out of reinsurance because of the negative headlines you generated at the AGM asking about reinsurance." So often journalists don't realise the impact of their stories, and you hear later about that impact. So there's a couple of small ones. Well, I think the day that the judge, Justice Bongiorno, said we're only freezing $40,000 of your house sale proceeds, when Steve Price the night before had been demanding $90,000 and we'd offered $65,000. So that was a pivotal moment in terms of getting out of that litigation, and then the flood of support that came in off the back of it. I mean, that was the moment that Crikey's monthly revenues went from $10,000 to $30,000 a month and never went back again. So that really was the pivotal moment that the business changed. I think also some of the events, like we had some fun, legal fundraisers and awards nights, and wearing the Crikey foam suit, to the Quill Awards and to a couple of AGMs. So just getting out and about in the sort of the whole stunt side of things was good fun. And then I think some of the big stories. So obviously Cheryl and Gareth was very memorable, where Laurie Oakes had done the Dance of the Seven Veils, where he'd said, "Cheryl's got a big secret, she's not telling you what it is." And the whole media was saying, "We know what it is, I'm not going to say." And I don't know why, I just said, "I'm going to say what it is." And I went bang. And then that period from 10:30 on that day until the 6 o'clock news was one of the most dramatic days in journalism in Australia, because everyone was debating, Crikey's done it. Do we repeat what Crikey has said? And all the papers were wrestling with what they're going to do. And then at 6 o'clock, Laurie Oakes came out with his evidence. Here are the emails. This is the story. So that was probably the most dramatic day editorially for Crikey. And I'll never forget that day. Just the pressure and the phone calls and when you make big calls to stick your neck out, sometimes it can blow up. And that one I still think was very controversial, but obviously in hindsight with what Laurie Oakes did, I think it was the right call to tell everyone else what the mainstream media was hinting at but weren't actually explicitly saying.